Hello and welcome to the Ornstein and Smough boss guide. Before I head into the fight proper, I just wanted to show you how to get from this bonfire to the boss the quickest. The first thing we do is kill this knight. I see people using different bonfires and different routes. This is the quickest way and definitely the one I would recommend. At the very least, do not use another bonfire. It might seem easier, but it never is. What you do is you run up these stairs, and then you can see that corridor down there, and you can just jump over the railing and land in the corridor. And I only killed the knight at the bottom in case I messed up the jump, which you might want to do if you're not safe with the jump. But once you are, you don't even have to kill that one. And then you're already in the Great Hall. Just need to avoid this giant sentinel here. And then there's the boss fog already. The next thing to consider is which of the two bosses you want to fight first. This is relevant because you will only get the loot from the one you'd kill second. So if you want either of their weapons or either of their armor sets, then you will need to kill that respective boss last. For example, let's say you really want to use Smough's hammer, you need to kill Ornstein first. That's all there is to it. If you kill Ornstein second, you will also get a nice ring. Even if you don't want his equipment, that ring is very handy if you are using piercing weapons. Especially rapiers and spears can benefit from the Leo ring. Now if there's no other reason for you to choose one boss over the other, then it's generally the easiest way to kill Ornstein first and then Smough. And we'll get to why later on, but generally most people agree that that's the easier way to go about it. If you find it's different for you, then of course disregard this advice. Regardless of who you decide to kill first, the initial phase of the fight is definitely the hardest, because both bosses will be in your face a lot. They are very aggressive and it's almost impossible to really get them separated to focus on whichever one you want to focus on. There is a little workaround, however, and that's using the pillars. You can use these to position yourself in such a way that the bosses have to run around, and often it gives you just a little bit of breathing room. So for example, you could have it so that Smough initiates an attack, but Ornstein's still walking. And then you can use this to get out of range of Smough's attack and get a hit or two in on Ornstein. It also works the other way around. If you get Ornstein locked into an attack animation, you might be able to get an attack in on Smough. This is somewhat harder, simply because of how quick the bosses are and how they move, but it's still feasible and definitely the way to make this fight a lot more manageable. I won't go into too much detail into the boss's individual moves, simply because there's no clear way to say react this way when you see that move. It all depends on what the other boss is doing at that point. If you stick to the pillars as I've suggested, then you will get a feel for which attacks you can exploit, which ones you should just stay back and continue waiting. And don't stay too glued to a single pillar. If you find you're not in a good position, there's more pillars around, and with that comes the necessity of being aware which pillar you're currently on, because you definitely don't want to run into a corner thinking there's going to be another pillar, because when the bosses have you cornered, it can be quite difficult to get out. Generally, this first phase of the fight is all about patience. If you get too greedy, these bosses can punish that very quickly. So only go for an attack if you're reasonably certain that you actually have a good opening. And as I've suggested before, if you're out in the open, don't try to fight them. That can backfire horribly. Use the pillars to your advantage. Similarly, if you need to heal or reapply a buff or reapply a consumable, get away from the bosses, get behind a pillar. These will protect you from most of the charging attacks, and you have enough time to heal. Now once the first boss has been defeated, the other one will become buffed. for the second phase. If you killed Ornstein first, then Smough will simply absorb his lightning powers. Generally, not much changes. The only thing to really be aware of is that Smough's butt slam attack now has lightning attached to it, which increases the range a lot and increases the damage a lot. His other attacks are generally not much worse than they were before. You don't want to be blocking them, but they are still quite easy to avoid. But this butt slam, when you see him charge it up, you want to get away. Roll backwards, run, whatever you have to do. This does tremendous amounts of damage, and tanking it is generally a really bad idea. Aside from that, because he's quite slow and really doesn't gain any speed when changing phases, it's very easy to just get behind him, get free swings and eventually kill him. It should also be noted that you can still stagger Smough in his super buffed form. He's still susceptible to that, so if you have a heavy weapon, you can reliably interrupt his attacks on occasion. On the other hand, if you killed Smough first, then Ornstein will absorb Smough's size power. He will become a lot bigger, and his moveset in the second phase changes more dramatically. He still does the charge attacks and his combos, and he still has the ranged lightning throw, but some of his moves definitely have different hitboxes, and especially because his size changes, the fight is a lot more different than the transition from Smough to Super Smough. The pillars are also no longer 100% safe to hide behind, because some of his charge attacks can actually sort of glitch across the pillars. And of course, because his spear has great range, standing right behind the pillar might still get you hit. Aside from that though, he only gains the butt slam attack from Smough. This is also very dangerous, just like when Super Smough does the butt slam. It is lightning charged and does a lot of damage. It has a little bit less range than the one done by Smough, but it's still very damaging and you still want to get away from it. You can use the recovery to get a few swings in, however, so it's still not the worst attack to see. And also, be aware that he can combo his standard attacks, so don't attack after you've dodged a single swing of his, because he might combo them. And unlike Super Smough, Super Ornstein cannot be staggered anymore, so don't try it, it doesn't work. Now the main difficulty in this fight is the first phase, when there's two bosses on you. And in order to alleviate this a little bit, you can summon Knight Solaire. His summon sign is right here in the Great Hall, and he is quite useful for the first phase. He can tank one of the bosses or even tank both of them for a little while until his health runs out. It makes it a lot more relaxed because you simply have more options, more openings and more time to breathe, get your health back, whatever you need to do. However, in the second phase of the fight, he tends to die very quickly because he doesn't know how to avoid the butt slam attacks, and these do so much damage that even if he gets into the second phase at almost full health, he won't make it to the end of it unless you have an incredible amount of damage output, in which case you probably wouldn't need his help anyway. Another thing that's quite a common question is what happens if you kill both of them at the same time in phase 1. Well, it doesn't do anything for you, because they have different length of death animation. It registers the death of Smough before the one of Ornstein, so you get the cutscene where Ornstein gets his superpowers, and then you get the second phase with Super Ornstein, and that's it. It also has no benefit at all damaging the bosses evenly in the first phase so that they will be pre-damaged for the second phase. They get a full heal. So there's no point dividing your attention between them. Focus down one of them, then the other in the super phase. That's the only way to go about it. Once you have successfully defeated the boss, you will get 50,000 souls, the soul of whichever boss you killed last, and if you killed Ornstein last, he will also drop the Leo ring. Now you will only get this ring if you actually pick it up from where you killed him. This does not get added to your inventory automatically. And you also get a humanity. And that's it. I hope this was a little helpful to you. And the most important advice I can give for this boss is don't lose hope. don't assume you're going to do this on your first try, and eventually they will break and you will feel quite good for having defeated them. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed. As always, I would love some feedback. Have a good day and bye bye.